Hey y'all, welcome to another powerful, brand new story. I really hope you love it, and if you do, make sure to join the fam by hitting that subscribe button and dropping a comment to let us know where you're watching from. Let's dive in.
The private elementary school cafeteria buzzed with laughter, gossip, and the clatter of lunch trays. It was a crisp fall afternoon, and golden light filtered through the tall windows, warming the long wooden tables where children chatted and shared snacks. But at the far corner of the room, one table sat unusually quiet, occupied by a single girl with big eyes, a faded pink jacket, and an old metal lunchbox she never opened. Lily Morgan. She sat in that same seat every day, carefully placing her dented lunchbox on the table, opening it with slow hands, then quietly closing it again moments later. No sandwich. No juice. Just an old napkin and a tiny folded paper she always tucked underneath. The other kids rarely noticed. But today, someone else did. Ethan Carter. The billionaire wasn't supposed to be there. He never visited schools, not even this one, though it bore his last name. Carter Elementary, built 10 years ago as part of a foundation his advisors insisted on for tax benefits and PR. He had come for a brief board meeting with the principal, but when the bell rang, and the children flooded into the lunchroom, he paused. He saw her. Amid the whirlwind of color and noise, that little girl sat in silence. She didn't beg for food or look around. She just stared at the empty lunchbox. Ethan frowned. "Jacob," he said to his driver, who stood behind him. "That girl. What's she doing?" Jacob leaned forward, surprised by the question. "Not sure, sir. Looks like she's not eating." Ethan nodded slowly. "Wait here." He walked forward, tailored suit, polished shoes, an outsider among giggling children. Some teachers recognized him but dared not interrupt. Lily didn't look up until a shadow fell across her table. She blinked up at him, wide-eyed. Her tiny fingers gripped the lunchbox. "May I sit?" Ethan asked softly. She hesitated, then gave a small nod. He sat. For a moment neither spoke. "You're Lily, right?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "Do you mind if I ask, why don't you eat lunch?" Her eyes flickered to the metal box. She hesitated, then said, "I do eat. Sometimes. But not today." Ethan glanced at the lunchbox. May I see?" She hesitated again. Then, silently, she opened the box. Inside, there was no food. Just a small wrinkled napkin and a neatly folded piece of paper, smooth at the edges like it had been opened many times before. Ethan looked at her, confused. "Is that a letter?" Lily nodded. "From my mom." With careful hands, she unfolded the note and passed it to him. Her voice was low, but steady. "She writes me one every day. Even if she doesn't have food to pack. She says words feed the heart." Ethan blinked. He looked down at the paper. In neat cursive were 5 lines. "My Lily. One day we'll have plenty. Until then, you have my love, my courage, and my pride. You are never empty. Mom." He stared at the note. Something strange tightened in his chest. A pressure. A twist. Lily reached out and took the note back, folding it gently, then placing it under the napkin. "She says if I believe it, it's true." Ethan's throat worked. For the first time in a long time, he didn't know what to say. "Your mom sounds brave," he finally said. "She is," Lily replied. "She works 2 jobs. Night shifts too. Sometimes she only sleeps 2 hours. He glanced at her lunchbox again. Faded paint on the side read Lily, in glitter stickers, now peeling. Ethan Carter had built a fortune from smart decisions and ruthless deals. He'd won every contract, crushed every competitor, and doubled his wealth every year for a decade. But in that moment, staring at a paper note in an empty box, none of it seemed to matter. "You go to this school on scholarship?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Lily said. "Miss Collins helped me. She said I was special. But I don't feel special." Ethan looked away. His hand trembled slightly. He clenched it. Then, a voice called from across the room. Lily! Recess! Lily jumped up, grabbed her lunchbox, and looked at him shyly. It was nice meeting you, Mr. Carter. You too, Lily, he said. She hesitated, then added, Tell your heart not to be empty either. With that, she turned and ran outside, her small shoes pattering against the floor. Ethan sat frozen. Jacob approached quietly. Sir? She had nothing in there, Ethan said quietly. Just a note. A note from her mom. Jacob nodded. Some folks survive on hope. Ethan looked at the door Lily had exited through. Not anymore, he muttered. Ethan Carter had walked away from millions of meetings in his life. He'd left behind boardrooms, press events, even charity galas without a second thought. But walking away from the cafeteria that day felt different. The sight of Lily Morgan sitting alone, eating nothing but words, wouldn't leave his mind. He sat quietly in the back of the principal's office while Principal Harris droned on about standardized testing and school funding. His hands were clasped tightly, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about that note. That napkin. That empty box. I'd like to see her records, Ethan interrupted. Principal Harris blinked. Lily Morgan's? Yes. Everything you've got, academic, disciplinary, anything. Well, she's one of our scholarship students. Straight A's. Quiet. Doesn't cause trouble. Her teacher, Miss Collins, speaks very highly of her. May I speak to the teacher? Principal Harris hesitated, then buzzed the front desk. Send in Maya Collins, please. Moments later, a woman with warm eyes and a cardigan stepped in, surprised to find herself face to face with the billionaire. You wanted to speak with me? She asked. Ethan stood. Miss Collins. You're Lily's teacher? Yes, Maya said, smiling. She's one of the brightest in my class. Kind, too. But she's dealing with a lot at home. She had nothing in her lunchbox today, Ethan said quietly. Maya's smile faded. That's not unusual. I want to help her. Maya raised her eyebrows. How? Ethan thought for a long moment before speaking. What if I funded a special support program? One that includes nutrition, home support, tutoring, and after-school care, quietly. I don't want her feeling like a charity case. She's already more dignified than half the board members I've met. Maya's eyes softened. That would change her life. And her mother's. Tell me about her mother. Claire Morgan. She used to be a nurse but had to leave her job when Lily's father abandoned them. Now she cleans office buildings during the night and works as a hotel receptionist by day. Barely sees Lily, but every morning she walks her to the school gate. Ethan nodded slowly. I want to meet her. Maya hesitated. She's proud. And she's been burned before. You'll need to approach gently. Ethan reached into his coat, pulled out his personal card, and handed it to her. Give her this. Tell her I'm not here to offer pity. I'm offering a partnership. Later that evening, Claire Morgan sat at the edge of her bed, holding the business card like it was a glass ornament that might shatter in her hand. Ethan Carter, Carter Tech CEO. Private contact, for Claire Morgan only. She read it 5 times. Her first instinct was to throw it in the trash. Rich people didn't care about women like her. She'd cleaned enough marble floors and executive restrooms to know that. But then she thought about Lily. About how she came home every day with that same empty lunchbox, and never once complained. And about the way Lily said, "He was nice, Mom. And sad, I think." Claire took a breath and picked up her phone. The next morning, Ethan waited at the quiet cafe he'd reserved just for the meeting. When Claire walked in, she looked tired but graceful, with worn shoes and a coat 2 sizes too big. She held her purse like it might be stolen at any moment. Miss Morgan, Ethan greeted, standing. Mr. Carter. She nodded. I don't usually meet billionaires for coffee. Especially ones who talk to my daughter at school. Ethan smiled faintly. She's extraordinary. Claire sat across from him, stiff. She's hungry. I know. There was a long pause between them. Then Claire said, So what do you want? I want to help her. And help you. She narrowed her eyes. Why? Because I saw something in your daughter that reminded me of someone I used to be, someone I've forgotten. And because no child should be feeding herself with words while I sit on a net worth large enough to feed a city. Claire stared at him. You don't owe us anything. I know. But I owe someone something. Maybe this is where I start. Claire's hands trembled slightly. I've done everything I can. I work 16-hour days. I've applied for housing support, food stamps, childcare. I've been rejected more times than I can count. You shouldn't have to do it alone. She looked up, eyes glossy. What are you offering? Ethan leaned forward. A full scholarship that includes meals, supplies, and tutoring. A safe after-school program so you can work without guilt. And I'll pay off your medical debt, quietly, through a foundation. All I ask is that you allow it. Claire's lips parted slightly. And in return? Nothing. Except, maybe one day, help someone else who's stuck where you are now. The silence between them was thick. Claire wiped the corner of her eye quickly. Lily, she thinks I'm a hero. I don't want her to know I couldn't afford bread this week. She already thinks you're a hero, Ethan said gently. I saw it in the note. Claire's breath hitched. She showed you that? He nodded. It broke me. Claire finally exhaled, long and slow. Okay. But no press. No handouts. No spotlights. Just dignity, Ethan promised. She nodded. Then we'll accept. That evening, Lily walked into the kitchen to find her mother smiling, truly smiling, for the first time in weeks. What's happening? Lily asked cautiously. Claire knelt beside her and pulled her close. Things are going to get better, sweetheart. Starting now. Lily blinked. Did something change? Claire smiled through tears. Someone noticed you. And he saw what I've always known. Monday morning came with a soft drizzle in the air, the kind that made everything feel cleaner, like a fresh start. Lily Morgan walked into Carter Elementary gripping her lunchbox. Same dented metal, same fading pink sticker, but something about her walk was different. There was a bounce in her step, a quiet excitement she couldn't explain, like the world had shifted overnight. She sat at her usual table in the cafeteria, just like always. The usual buzz of kids filled the air. No one noticed her. No one except Miss Collins, who passed her with a knowing smile and a slight nod. Lily set her lunchbox down and opened it slowly, her fingers trembling. Inside wasn't a napkin. Or just a note. There was food. A small sandwich, some baby carrots in a container, 2 slices of apple, and a tiny cupcake wrapped in foil. And beneath it all, yes, the familiar folded note from her mom. Lily's breath caught in her throat. She looked around, then read the note first. My Lily, you have always deserved more than I could give. Today, you get both love and lunch. Someone saw you. Someone cared. Never stop believing you're worth it. Mom! She smiled so wide her cheeks hurt. For the first time in a long time, Lily felt full before even taking a bite. Across the room, Ethan Carter stood behind the cafeteria's observation glass, watching silently. She smiled, he said to Jacob, who stood beside him. She did, Jacob agreed. I think I forgot what that feels like, Ethan murmured. Later that day, Miss Collins invited Lily to stay a bit after class. The classroom was quiet as students filed out, backpacks thudding and sneakers squeaking on tile. Lily, Miss Collins said gently. How was lunch? It was amazing, Lily said, beaming. And the cupcake had sprinkles. Miss Collins laughed softly. That's wonderful. Lily hesitated. Did you help? I might have passed along your mom's message to someone who could, she said, kneeling beside her. But you're the reason it happened. Me? Sometimes, the right people just need to see what's been there all along. Lily looked thoughtful. Do you think I could write a thank you letter? I think that's a beautiful idea. That evening, back at his office overlooking the city skyline, Ethan opened a pale blue envelope left on his desk by Jacob. No return address. Just a small drawing of a lunchbox on the front. Inside, a letter in wobbly handwriting. Dear Mr. Carter, thank you for making my lunchbox happy again. I used to pretend it had food in it. But now, it really does. You didn't have to do anything. But you did. That's what heroes do. Even quiet ones. I saved my cupcake for dinner because it felt special. Thank you for noticing me. Love. Lily Morgan. Ethan read it twice. Then a third time. He folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer of his desk, next to his most important documents and awards. But nothing in that drawer had ever felt as valuable as Lily's words. He sat back in his chair, quiet. For a long time, he had built skyscrapers, led empires, and turned profits, but this was the first time in years he felt like he'd built something real. A week later, Ethan returned to Carter Elementary, but not for a board meeting. He arrived in jeans and a sweater, no entourage. Just him. He walked into Miss Collins's classroom after school, where Lily stayed behind drawing on scrap paper. She looked up and gasped. Mr. Carter! He smiled. Hey, Lily. Mind if I sit? She nodded eagerly. I'm drawing a picture of my lunchbox. With food inside this time. Ethan chuckled. I loved your letter. I was nervous, she admitted. But Mom said if someone helps you from the heart, you should say thank you. Well, you said it beautifully. They sat in comfortable silence for a while as Lily colored. Then she looked at him, eyes curious. Were you ever a kid who didn't have lunch? Ethan looked down. Yeah. I was. Lily's eyes widened. Really? My mom was a waitress. We didn't have much. Sometimes she skipped meals to feed me. I remember pretending I wasn't hungry. Me too, Lily whispered. Ethan met her eyes. That's why I saw you. I saw myself. Lily blinked. Are you still that kid? He thought about it. Sometimes, he said. But meeting you helped me remember that I don't want to forget who I was. Or who I want to be. She smiled. I think you're already that person. He looked away quickly, blinking harder than he meant to. Do you think I could help someone someday? She asked. Ethan nodded. You already are. She tilted her head. How? Because you reminded me what kindness looks like. And how powerful hope can be. Lily smiled shyly and handed him the picture she had just finished. It showed a lunchbox on a table. Inside it was food, and around it were hearts. Above it, written in big bold crayon letters. Not empty anymore. Ethan swallowed hard. No, he said quietly. Not anymore. Weeks passed, and though the seasons began their slow change toward winter, something much warmer had taken root inside Carter Elementary. It started small, like most things do. A free lunch here, a backpack donation there. But soon, more children in need found their silent struggles answered, and none of them knew why. Lily Morgan noticed it, though. One afternoon, she saw another girl at lunch open her box and gasp at the apple slices and turkey sandwich inside. Then another boy found a note in his bag with encouragement typed in bold letters, You matter. Your dreams matter. Lily just smiled. Because she knew. Somewhere, someone was watching with care. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. At home, things were changing too. Claire Morgan now worked one job instead of two, and for the first time in years, she got to pick Lily up from school. They'd walk hand in hand through the falling leaves, talking about spelling tests and funny things teachers said. They laughed more. They dreamed more. And one night, after dinner, Claire knelt beside Lily's bed and said, He's invited us. Who? Lily asked, eyes wide. Mr. Carter. He wants to have dinner with us at his home next week. Just a small gathering. Lily sat up straighter. At his house. Claire nodded, unsure herself what the evening would bring. Ethan Carter's estate was nestled just outside the city, elegant but quiet, more stone and garden than gold and glass. It wasn't a castle, but it felt like a world far from the one Claire and Lily had ever known. They arrived to warm lights, soft music, and the scent of something homemade. Ethan greeted them at the door in a sweater and jeans, his usual air of formality softened into something more human. "Hi, Lily," he said with a grin. "I was hoping you'd come." She beamed. "You have a really big mailbox." He laughed. "You should see the fridge." Claire smiled nervously. "We didn't want to intrude." "You're not," he said sincerely. "You're guests." Inside, the house was filled with warm tones, cozy furniture, and photos of landscapes and cities. But one new addition stood out on the mantel, a simple child's drawing of a lunchbox, filled with food and hearts, with the words, "Not empty anymore." Lily's eyes lit up. "You kept it? It's the best gift I've ever gotten." They sat for dinner, nothing extravagant, just roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and pie. Jacob, his driver-turned-friend, joined them at the table too. They talked, they laughed, and Ethan told them stories about his childhood, ones he hadn't told anyone in years. "I used to sell pencils at school for quarters," Ethan said. "One time, a girl offered me her sandwich because she saw I never brought lunch. I said no. I was too proud. But I've never forgotten her." Claire looked at him with understanding. "Pride feeds us when food doesn't." He nodded. "I'm starting to learn there's a better meal, kindness." After dinner, they sat in the living room sipping hot cocoa, yes, even Lily, who held her mug with both hands like a treasure. "Lily," Ethan said gently, "do you know what I do for work?" "You build buildings and companies, right?" she guessed. He chuckled. "More or less. Well, I think you're better at building people." The room went quiet. Claire's hand found Lily's, and she squeezed it. Ethan looked at them both. "Can I show you something?" He walked to a nearby shelf and opened a drawer, pulling out a thick folder. Inside were pages, plans, charts, and sketches. "I'm starting a new foundation," he explained. "It'll fund school programs, food assistance, single-parent support, and more. But I didn't know what to call it." He handed Lily a printed logo draft. She squinted, then gasped. "The Lunchbox Project." Below it, "Because no child should have to imagine a meal." "I want to name it after the thing that started all this," Ethan said, voice quiet. "Your lunchbox changed my life." Lily clutched the paper to her chest. "I'm going to help, right?" she asked. "Oh, you're going to lead someday." Ethan smiled. Claire's eyes welled. "You really mean it?" "I do. You gave me more than I ever gave you. You reminded me of the power of one person to make another feel seen." For the first time in a long while, silence was comfortable. That night, back in their small apartment, Lily was already fast asleep. Claire stood by her window, looking out into the quiet city, her thoughts buzzing. Her phone buzzed. A message. From Ethan Carter. "She's not just special. She's the reason I believe in people again." Claire smiled through tears. She typed back. "Thank you for not just seeing her, but hearing her too." Back in his mansion, Ethan opened his desk drawer again. Inside was the note Lily had first shown him. "You are never empty." He folded it slowly, placed it inside a silver frame, and set it beside the drawing on his mantel. Because some gifts don't need a price tag. They just need to be held with both hands. Winter crept into the city with its chill and quiet skies, but warmth bloomed in the most unexpected places. It showed up in school hallways, where kids once silent now laughed louder. It flickered in classroom lights that stayed on later, welcoming students to warm meals and safe spaces. And it glowed brightest inside the Morgan home, where hope had replaced hunger. Lily's life was no longer defined by what she lacked, but by what she had found. She woke up each morning excited for school, with a real lunch in her bag and a real sense of purpose in her chest. The Lunchbox Project, as Ethan had officially launched it, wasn't just a charity, it was a movement. And Lily, in her own quiet way, had become its heart. She had even helped design its logo, a small lunchbox with wings, drawn in her favorite pink marker. One afternoon, as snow gently began to fall outside, Principal Harris called an assembly. The students gathered in the auditorium, buzzing with whispers. When the curtain rose, they didn't expect to see Ethan Carter on stage, dressed not in a suit, but in a plain blue sweater with a lunchbox pin on the collar. "I used to think success meant building tall things," he began. "Skyscrapers. Companies. Fortune lists." He looked out across the sea of young faces. "But someone small taught me something big, that real success is when no one has to pretend they're not hungry." Lily sat in the front row, blinking rapidly as he continued. "The Lunchbox Project started here, because this is where I learned to see again. And today, I want to honor the girl who helped me find my purpose." Gasps rippled through the crowd as he turned toward Lily and held out a small, velvet box. Her breath caught. "Lily Morgan, you showed the world what bravery looks like. You reminded all of us that kindness isn't weakness, it's strength. And so today, I'd like to present you with the first ever Beacon of Hope Award." The room exploded in applause as Lily rose to her feet, cheeks flushed, legs shaking slightly. Inside the box was a gold pin shaped like her lunchbox drawing, with wings. She clutched it in both hands and whispered, "Thank you?" Ethan crouched beside her, smiling. "No. Thank you?" Later that evening, the Morgans and Ethan shared another quiet dinner. This time, they ate by candlelight in Ethan's kitchen, with laughter echoing between the walls like old friends. "I want to be a writer," Lily said suddenly, mid-slice of apple pie. Claire raised a brow. "You do?" Lily nodded. "I want to write stories that make people feel full. Like you said, filled with something good." Ethan smiled. "Then I think you've already started." She grinned. "I have a notebook full of ideas. One of them's about a girl with an invisible lunchbox that fills with kindness every time someone notices her." Claire laughed. "That sounds familiar. I wanted to help people who feel invisible," Lily added seriously. Ethan leaned in. "I'd like to read it one day. Maybe even help you publish it." Her eyes widened. "Really? You changed my story, Lily. I can't wait to see what you do with yours." Spring eventually melted the snow, and with it, the world began to change. Not through laws or headlines, but through small, invisible things. Kids with meals they didn't have before, parents who could breathe easier, teachers who no longer had to buy snacks out of their own pockets. The Lunchbox Project grew city by city, school by school. But at its core, it was always about one thing: noticing someone. One afternoon, at a community center funded by the project, Lily stood in front of a small group of kids. She held a book in her hand, her first short story, stapled together, with her drawing of a winged lunchbox on the cover. She took a breath and began to read aloud. The kids leaned in. Their eyes sparkled. And Ethan Carter stood at the back of the room, arms folded, smiling like a father might, not because he owned anything in that room, but because he had helped it grow. And when Lily finished reading, the youngest boy in the room clapped wildly and said, "That made my chest feel warm." Lily beamed. "That's how you know the story is working." Claire, standing off to the side, wiped a tear from her cheek. She had once wondered how she'd ever give her daughter a real chance. Now she stood watching her girl shine, not from wealth, but from worth. After the reading, Ethan knelt beside Lily and handed her an envelope. She opened it slowly, eyes scanning the contents. "A scholarship?" she asked, stunned. Ethan nodded. "Full ride. Anywhere you want to go, when the time comes. I know you're still little, but I also know how fast time moves when you're chasing big dreams." Lily leapt into his arms. "Thank you." He laughed, hugging her tightly. "You don't have to thank me anymore." She pulled back and looked him in the eyes. "I'm not thanking you for the scholarship. No. I'm thanking you for seeing me. He nodded, heart full. You saw me when I was just trying to disappear, she whispered. And you saw me when I didn't know I needed to be seen, he replied. Years later, when Lily Morgan published her first real book, the dedication page read, "To the man who saw an empty lunchbox and found a full heart. And to every child who's ever pretended they weren't hungry, this is for you. You are not invisible.